Today is January 21st, 2019. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Tom Johnson in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
In Salina, Kansas, in 1945,
When's your birthday?
September 15th. I'm sorry.
September 15th, 1945.
Yeah.
Who is your father?
Nels Johnson
I'm
Jr.
sorry?
Nels, Nels Johnson Jr.
And your mother?
Betty Betty Johnson
What was her maiden name?
Smith. Betty Smith.
Okay. Did you go through school in Salina?
No, I went to a one-room schoolhouse, Cox, District 31.
Cox. Where's that located?
It was located between Salina and Bennington, over toward the town of Niles.
Okay.
Little country school, one room.
One room.
Had 8 grades in one room, but we never had enough students to fill all 8 grades. So,
Who was your teacher?
Mrs. Fern. What was Fern's last name? I'll never forget that. Mrs. Fern.
Yeah.
I don't remember right now.
How did she handle all 8 grades in one room?
Well, we learned to read with flashcards by older students, and that's how we did our reading. And so a lot of the older students would help the younger students. You know, that's the only way, she could do it, was that way. We had a Mrs. Thompson when I was in the 7th grade, and she had to give it up in December. It was too much for her, so her husband, who was going to school to be a teacher, took over, and the school board let him finish up her semester. And then after that, Snyder, there was a lady named Snyder that did my 8th grade.
Okay.
And we'd go into Salina. They'd have us, all the little country schools, there was 4 or 5 of them around there. We'd go into, then it was Kansas Wesleyan.
Yeah.
We'd go into Kansas Wesleyan Auditorium and have a ceremony for our graduation. And then I went to Bennington, the high school. But a couple of years after I went to Bennington, Kansas consolidated and closed down a lot of those little schools. And we, my brothers and sisters, we all started. I was already going to Bennington.
Yeah.
They went to Bennington then too.
And it's Bennington,
Bennington.
and that's in
Bennington.
Salina?
That's north of Salina, yes,
Okay.
on Highway 40, yeah, or 81. I'm sorry, Highway 81.
And you
north side.
graduated what year?
I graduated in '63.
1963.
1963. Yeah.
Who was your favorite teacher?
Mr. Howard
Mr. Howard.
in high school. Mr. Howard, yeah.
Why was he your favorite?
He could relate to us on a lot of things, relate to the boys. He was just a good guy, not an old guy, a young guy, but he could relate to us well and did a lot of things with us. And he'd come from a rural background, a small school background, and so he knew a lot about us,
Okay.
about what we were and stuff. And
What type of work did father do?
he was a farmer.
Farmer. What chores did you do in the farm?
We slop hogs, feed cows in the wintertime, going to school. In fact, we used to slop hogs in these overalls, so we have on our school clothes, and a pair of overall boots. And we had a back porch that wasn't heated, and it gets so cold, and from all the water and stuff that we give the hogs, why those overalls would almost stand by themselves. We just slip them on, run out there. You know how it is. We used to wait till the last minute when we had chores to do, get them done, and then go to school. So Mom would drive us to school. It was about 3 miles. Of course, my kids used to razz me. I used to say sometimes we walked, and Dad said, "Yeah, he walked uphill both ways with snows in his face, Good little school. Sorry when it closed down, because it kind of took the heart out of the community.
Okay.
And Judy can testify that too. When they closed her high school down and moved it into Colby, and it took, it takes a lot out of the heart of the town or the heart of the community when those little schools closes.
Now, was Salina the nearest big town?
Yeah, Salina's the biggest town. Yeah.
How often would you get to Salina?
Usually once a week.
Once a week?
When I was a kid, because we take eggs and milk in, mostly eggs, once in a while milk, into a place and sell, and then pick up supplies, or groceries and stuff. And that was usually on a Saturday. And there was Fifth Street in Salina. That's kind of Farmer's Street, I guess you could. That's where you sold your eggs and cream and stuff, and that's where I see a lot of other neighbors there on that day on Fifth Street in Salina.
What was your favorite chore?
My favorite store.
Favorite chore?
Oh,
on the
chore.
farm?
My favorite chore. Oh, I liked working with the hogs.
Okay.
I did show hogs in the fair, but yeah, probably working with the hogs. We had a couple of horses, but my younger brothers got into that, but I never got into the horses. Feeding the cows was okay, but
Okay. What was your least favorite chore?
Well, before I got old enough to drive a tractor, my mom wallpapered for everybody in the community, and I used to have to go help her wallpaper. I was the oldest until my sister got a little older, and then I got to go to the field, and then I got out of that wallpapering business. I don't like wallpaper this day.
What tractor did you have?
We had a Case mostly.
Okay.
Case brand was mostly, we had a good Case dealer. In fact, my dad used to say he didn't care what color paint was on the tractor, depended on what kind of service he got.
Yep.
And I noticed over the years when you travel that if you see a lot of green or a lot of red, then there's a lot of concentration. You'll notice that, hey, they must have a good John Deere dealer, or a good International dealer, or Massey Ferguson, whatever, or Alice Chalmers, whatever, in that area, and that's why. And since I'm kind of mess around with old tractors now, with farm tractors, I've learned that too. In certain areas, a brand is more popular in certain areas because back then they evidently had a good dealer, good service.
How large was the farm? How many acres?
Our home place was only 160 acres. It was my great grandpa's place, and but then over the years we rented pasture and other farm ground down on the bottom, and I maybe at one time we had maybe close to 600 acres with what we owned and what we rented.
Okay.
But most times just 160 acres was what we owned. Yeah.
What'd you do after high school? What'd you do after high school?
I worked in a filling station for a little bit, and then they was putting Interstate 70 through Kansas, and everybody said, hey, it's good pay, and it was good pay for an 18-year-old, So I went to work on highway construction, building.
What'd you do?
Building concrete work, mostly bridges, wash checks, ditch liners, culverts, stuff like that.
So you did concrete work?
Yeah, concrete work on highway, yeah.
Okay.
Interstate going through, my kids, I'll give them a bad time when I go through Salina and go north, or west rather. I'll say, hey, I helped build this bridge, and all that. And they say, well, look out, it's going to fall down. They give me a bad time. But
where were you when President Kennedy was assassinated?
I was still working at the gas station. And got a story about that is the day that they had the funeral, they had an hour when everything closed down. And so a friend of mine came by. He was doing farm labor at the time, and he came by and said, well, I got an hour to kill, so we just, I think we went and got something to eat and rode around a little bit. And we come back down Santa Fe, where the station was in North Salina, and there's this long line of cars out in the street. And we thought, what in the world's going on? Went up, and here's these cars up in the gas station filling themselves with gas. The gentleman who was in charge, who was my boss, forgot to shut the pumps off. And somebody's discovered it. So they were getting free gas. So,
how long did you work on Interstate 70?
Until 65, when I got my draft notice.
Okay.
And all those gentlemen out there I worked with construction guys that worked with me said, oh, you don't want to get drafted, you're going to Vietnam. And so sure enough, I went down and talked to a recruiter, and he said, yeah, you don't want to get drafted, you'll get Vietnam for sure. So I enlisted. And then the recruiters later told me, well, hey, we need to go to Kansas City and take a test. That's for, I don't know, aptitude test, I don't know what you'd call it. So I went down there, and he said, oh, you did so well on that, we got this special program, but you have to enlist for 4 years. And I bit. So I got this 4 year, but when I got to AIT, I realized everybody's going to Vietnam. I just have an extra year to serve.
Now, when did you enlist?
September 65.
You called the day?
I would say toward the end of the month.
Okay.
September, toward the end of September.
1965.
Yeah, it was toward the end of September 65.
Now, why did you join the Army or the Navy, Marines, or the Air Force?
I'm not sure why I chose the Army. I mean, I guess maybe because I thought it would be a 3-year
Yeah.
deal, and then it turned out to be a 4-year. But probably because of the 3-year
Yeah.
and that. So
Where'd you go for your basic training?
Fort Leonard, Fort Lost in the Woods over here in
Lost
Missouri.
Wood, yep.
Yep, over here in Missouri. Yeah.
Tell me about basic.
I was because I went to a small school, and everybody in a small school goes out for sports. You know, if you're not, you're a nerd. You know, and I had 2 or 3 guys in the whole high school that were that way. But so I say that to say I was in fairly good physical shape.
What'd you play in high? What sports you playing?
Oh, we played football, basketball, and baseball. We had track too, but I just when it come spring, you could either go for track or baseball, and I always just stuck with baseball. But being in good shape, I was amazed at when we start. Have to double time places, and double time is just really not much, a chore. But there were guys falling out, and I think the one thing that amused me was that guys would go AWOL, couldn't take it and leave, and they go home. So naturally, we'd hear that, hey, well, we just went to their house, and there they was, and brought them back. But the over in Fort Leonard Wood, the barracks, I don't know if you've been there, are built up on the side of the hill and got crawl spaces underneath them, or where they got steel center and stuff. And one night, one of the guys heard something going on, and he went out there and shined his flashlight, and there was a guy under there. He went AWOL once or twice, I don't know for sure, but anyway, this time he went AWOL, he just went underneath the barracks, and he was underneath there for 2 or 3 days before he found him. So I don't know.
What type of training did you have in basic?
Just mostly physical, physical stuff. You have the obstacle course you have to go through, and you have an endurance thing. You have to be able to run a mile and so much time, and I forget what they called that, physical some kind of physical thing you have to, that they want you to meet. They give it too early, and if you don't pass it, I remember there was guys that have to during lunch period, they'd have to do extra calisthenics and stuff, and that's So basically, I didn't do any Vietnam training until I went to Fort Gordon for AIT, and then at the end of Fort Gordon, when us that were going to Vietnam, spent 2 weeks. Mostly, the thing I remember we did at that Vietnam training was how to dismount out of a vehicle if you're ambushed. And which side to get on, and what to watch for, and how to watch for booby traps. That's mostly what I remember about the Vietnam side of the training at Fort Gordon.
Back at Fort Leonard Wood, tell me about bivouac.
Bivouac, when we go out and camp out and stuff. I love that. I mean, I love the outdoors anyway, so I didn't mind that at all. So.
What was the weather when you were at Fort Leonard Wood? Was it?
It was nice. Of course, we got done right before Christmas. I remember right. Because I was home for Thanksgiving and went back. So went down with some guys in a Pontiac station, so convertible. I say, but a convertible. And we were coming back. They lived in Topeka and Abilene, I believe, not Abilene, Jackson City. And I was going to ride back with them, but my company wouldn't let us out till the next morning, and I thought they'd already left. So my uncle sent me some money to come back on the train. So I came back on the train and found later that they waited till the next morning for me. I felt bad about that. They were waiting outside the gate, but I didn't realize that till I saw them later after I come back from Thanksgiving. And I think that I had not the wife of the uncle sent me, but another aunt that wanted me home for Thanksgiving. So that's why this uncle sent me the money to have a train ride.
Now you went to Fort Gordon for AIT?
Yeah, at Fort Gordon for AIT, radio training, radio repair training,
Radio repair training?
Yeah, radio repair.
Okay. And was that geared toward Vietnam, AIT?
Pardon?
Was AIT geared toward Vietnam?
Not only the last, like I say, only the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
I mean, you worked on the radios that you would come encounter, you worked on the equipment you would come encounter with in Vietnam, or probably anywhere in the service, or the Army as far as that goes. But I would say only the last 2 weeks, and that was in a different facility or a different location than where we took our AIT training.
And what radios were you training with?
Backpack type radios,
Okay.
the ones, and then one thing that I got to work on in Vietnam that I was privileged to work on was Collins single sideband that they used in the Mars station. You know, where the Mars station was where you could go and talk to, and they used Collins single sideband radios. And my predecessor had been there before, had worked on those. So when I inherited his bench, that was one of my jobs was to work on them. There was I didn't work too much on the field radios. There was other guys who worked on the field radios.
That was the prick back radio. That was the prick. What number is that?
I don't remember what the model is now or anything like that. It's been a while back.
Okay. How long did AIT last?
We started first a year probably, after Christmas. Went back after Christmas. We got to come home for Christmas, then went back. And we were, with the Vietnam training, it was went to Vietnam the end of May.
Okay, end of May. Tell me about going to Vietnam.
Went through, up at San Francisco, what's that town that you go through? I don't know, can't remember now. But then we went through the San Francisco area and flew on a commercial airline to Vietnam. Went through Tung Son Nhut, or Cam Ranh Bay, I'm sorry, Cam Ranh Bay.
You fly straight to Vietnam?
No, we stopped in Japan, I believe it was. We stopped in Japan and then went on into Cam Ranh Bay.
Because we stopped in Japan at Tachikawa Air Base and then flew on to Cam Ranh Bay.
Yeah. I remember, no, it was Japan. I know we stopped into Japan. So it was a commercial plane.
Yeah, we flew Northwest Orient.
Yeah, Northwest Orient. That's who it was. Northwest, yeah. Northwest, yeah.
Okay.
Sure was.
You recall the date you landed in Vietnam?
Do I know?
You recall the date you landed in Vietnam?
I don't know. My daughter made me an album of stuff, and I kind of refer back to it sometime. Let me see if it, I don't know if it not, I've got here the guys I flew in with, but no, that was in the same company, but no, I don't have a date.
Okay, that's fine. Was it May of?
It was May. It was May of '66.
May of '66. When you first got off the airplane, what was your reaction?
Heat. It was hot. It was hot. And however, since then I've flown to other parts of the world on mission trips like up with the church in Africa.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing you notice when you get there is the smell and the heat. The first time you get off the plane, because a lot of times you land on the tarmac.
Yep.
You know, and you get out, and so you have the smell of the air, the heat that's there, and that's the first thing that you recognize.
So what did you do at Cam Ranh Bay?
Pardon?
What did you do at Cam Ranh Bay?
Oh, we were just there for a day or so, and then I'm trying to think how we went up to Quy Nhon. But Quy Nhon was where I was based, and that's where I spent in Cam Ranh Bay, or Quy Nhon rather, or out in Valier is where I spent my service at.
Okay. What unit were you assigned to?
We were assigned to 41st Signal, Company B.
Company B. Okay. And you were based at Quy Nhon?
Based at Quy Nhon, or out in the Valley A.
Valley. What is Valley A?
I don't know. It was just a designation they had on the area north of town.
Okay.
Now I did spend, I don't remember how long it was, 2 or 3 months in Tuy Hoa. The White Horse Division of the Koreans were in Tuy Hoa, and I went down there for a while. Most of the time I was in Quy Nhon, which is where the Tiger Division of the South Koreans were.
Okay. What were your duties with the 41st Signal?
Well, I was supposed to be a radio repairman, but when I got there, they talked that they needed some radio operators, and they told us that we'd be stationed for support for the Koreans, and I volunteered. And I did that up until fall of '68. And in the fall of '68, they rotated me back into Quy Nhon.
Okay.
And I had a unique experience there in the fact that they were looking to build a new warehouse to stock parts and stuff. And they found out I had worked with concrete, so I got to head up the warehouse project. I got there's some pictures in here that shows that, the construction of the warehouse that we did.
Now, what did you do as a radio operator?
With the Koreans, just for support.
Okay.
If they needed artillery support or airstrike somewhere, or if they needed medevac.
Now, was this at Tuiwawa?
No, this was mostly at Quignon,
Quignon.
Camp Valley.
Okay.
I did the same. Well, I'm sorry, I did the same thing at Tuiwawa too, but it wasn't as for a long period of time.
Okay. What radios did you have in Vietnam?
Just those backpack radios that I
Okay.
can't think of the name of. I don't remember.
Now,
what
did
they
you
were
go
called.
out with the Koreans?
Yes.
Mhm.
We go on patrol with the Koreans.
What do you do on patrol?
Really just go wherever they went. And most time it was uneventful.
Mhm.
And once in a while you'd have to call in an airstrike or something. Or, very seldom did I have to call in a medevac. Most time if there was anything that happened to one of them, they took care of themselves. Very seldom, only when they had to be transported to a hospital would you have to call in a medevac helicopter.
What about booby traps?
I've got an interesting story about that. There was a mountain around Quignon we called it VC Mountain, but it's really Vung Chow Mountain.
What's the name?
Vung Chow,
Vung.
VUNGCHOW, I guess.
Okay.
I can't remember for sure, but they called it VC Mountain, but it wasn't because the VC was there, it was just the name of the mountain.
Yeah.
And we had the Company B, the 41st had a radio installation on top of it. In fact, one time they were invaded, and we were out close to the ammo depot, and we had a 1.5 ton truck out there that we had used to bring out some equipment on, and they unloaded the equipment, so we still had and we used that deuce and a half. And we took it and went over to the ammo depot and took some ammo up the mountain. It was a curvy old road, and you get up there, and I noticed when we pulled in, I'd been there before, I noticed when we pulled in that the front gate was all tore up and been blown, but didn't see much about anything else, but I knew where the supply place was, so I pulled in there and got out, and didn't even notice when I pulled in, got out, and there's half a body laying there on the ground. And talking to one of the other guys that was stationed up there, he said, yeah, we were in the tower, and there was this drainage ditch that they had put in when the monsoon comes to help with the rain. And he said they come up through that tower, and he said, or that drainage ditch, and it was up in that tower. And he says, we had that M60 machine gun, and we were just like shooting fish in a barrel. And he said, I'm sure that one you almost stepped on was, they'd been cut in half with our fire. But he said the amazing was they just kept coming. He said it's like, he said, I know someone was pushing them, and he said they were just young kids. He said they hardly had any clothes on, barefoot, maybe flip flops, but and a pair of shorts, and they just kept coming. He said that, and I said it was unbelievable what their motivation, or somebody was motivating them. Don't know what. But anyway, back to the booby trap thing. When we were on patrol one time, we had a Vietnamese scout with us that day, or one of the Koreans could read Vietnamese. I'm not sure which it was. But there was a sign there, and the locals used to go up on Vung Chow Mountain and gather the wood they used for charcoal. And on the sign it had wrote "Danger, booby trap area." And we figured it was for the locals to warn them that there was booby traps in this area. So. But I thought that was kind of amusing. They marked it. When we were in training for Vietnam, they talked about three rocks or 3 piles or something. 3 still piles of rocks. It was a sign how they marked where their booby traps was. But here was a sign that told them where it was.
Yeah.
I got to go back to Vietnam.
You did.
In 2010, I went back. My son, who works for a nonprofit charitable organization that builds children's hospitals, and he was in Uganda, Africa, at Mbali, a town called Mbali, and he was administrator of a hospital there. And there was some interest. He had some. They do big head babies, where they do insert a channel for the water to drain off. Here in the States they use shunt, but he uses, I can go get you that name of that procedure, but I don't know if you need it or not. But they do this procedure, and it's the only place in the world they did it. And they used to have people come and observe, and they had Vietnamese come in and observe that procedure, and they wanted to build a hospital in Vietnam, and there were some backers, if I remember right, that was going to build a hospital there. So Derek was going to be, my son Derek was going to be the one to go to, to check it out and see what area was prevalent with this problem with children, so that they would build the hospital there. But due to some being a Christian organization, that there was going to be some complications, so they abandoned it. But we still, when they scheduled a trip, the Scott Harris, the guy who also was in Vietnam, said, take your dad with you. So I was going to get to go with him when he did this, and Derek said, well, we're still going. And so we went, and we started off in Saigon, and we went up to Quy Nhon, since I'd been in Quy Nhon and spent time in Quy Nhon, but we ended up in Hanoi. And the gentleman we was with there says, my dad was in the war. He was disabled in the war, and he wants to meet you. And I didn't know about the next day. He says, my dad's out buying watermelon and beer. You're coming over this evening or this afternoon whenever you get done here. So we did. We went, and of course he spoke Vietnamese, but his son, that was our contact, was very fluent, could interpret and stuff. So we traded war stories. They had this platform on this lean-to, and they had mats up there, and we got up on those mats, and we ate watermelon and drank beer and traded war stories. I think it's kind of unique that I got to visit with the enemy, I guess, almost 50 years later.
Oh, yeah,
But that was really a neat experience for me. Of course, I don't know if I'd recommend for someone to go back to Vietnam, because it's not the Vietnam War, it's the American War.
Yes. And
they told one of the guys, when we first were in Saigon, one of the guys was there, told us, he says, hey, he says, this was the American War, and the influence is that you drove them out. We drove the Americans out.
Yep.
And so, it was, but he says, there's people here who are grateful that Americans came, but they can't show it.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to show it, because they're glad for the sacrifices the Americans made and all this, but because of the culture that's there now and the government that's there now, they can't do that. And sure enough, you get very much, that's why I say I don't know if I'd recommend for a person to go to Vietnam. To me, it was a great experience because I was with my son. And I got to, trade war stories with the guy from the other side. But
I thought about going back, but
just be prepared, that
yeah.
that it's,
when you went out on patrol, how long would you be out on patrol?
Oh, just overnight or during the day. It was just a short period of time.
Okay. So you were out overnight then?
Sometimes overnight. Sometimes
what kind of
overnight.
position did you set up at night?
What kind of
At
position?
night, what kind of position did you set up at night?
I don't know. We wouldn't set a position. We just patrol an area.
Okay.
Just scout an area. And that, the Koreans were assigned to protect the towns.
Yeah.
And so they would go out and try to flush out any Viet Cong or NVA that happened to be in the area.
Okay.
And they had intelligence that would feed them information about.
But you didn't stay overnight?
No, never stayed overnight.
Okay.
We always was back in our beds at night.
Okay.
We lived in a bunker, but when we were out with the Koreans. And first it was just myself that was there, and then over the years, I think when they sent me back in, there was like 4 of us out there at that time. But,
what kind of quarters did you have in Quy Nhon?
oh, we had regular barracks. Barracks that they had built. I think I may have pictures of, if I do have pictures of them in here somewhere. Here's where we're pouring the concrete for the warehouse, but here's the inside barracks. They were just, I think next page may show the outside, I don't remember. Yeah, there's the,
Okay.
so, when I first went to Vietnam, Company B, there were tents. Well, headquarter company and Company B were there together, and there were tents set up on a wood frame, and with I believe it was a wood floor. I don't think it was a concrete floor. I think it was a wood floor. But they eventually replaced all those with these barracks that was built mostly with the guys stationed there. It wasn't necessarily an engineering or construction crew come in to do it.
Yeah.
It was they'd have a gentleman who was experienced in building, just like I got volunteered to do the warehouse. Why, it was the same way. They would come in and they would build in, and at night understood that, well, I know it was night, you would go help, for a couple hours, you would go help pound nails or saw boards
Yep.
or whatever, so. They were two-story structures and that.
Yeah, we worked with the Rocks for a little while. They were pretty good fighters.
Oh, yeah,
Rocks.
they were, they did their hand-in-hand stuff, and
Yes.
yeah, they was,
They
yeah.
didn't mess around.
No, they were not, yeah, they were there serious, they were serious, right?
Yes.
Kind of mean serious in a way.
Yes.
So,
We saw one formation, and this Korean officer just knocked the holy hell out of this soldier. I don't know what he did.
Yeah, oh yeah, I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
We used to go to town with them once in a while. We quit doing that because they'd always get in trouble. And we didn't know if we'd have a ride back home or not, so we quit doing that. We quit hitching rides with them. We'd find another way into town and not go with the Koreans because they'd gonna get in trouble.
Yes. What are the monsoons?
Monsoon was, yeah, a lot of rain, and talking about the Koreans, how mean they was, when the French were there, they built roads and they built them up high for the monsoon. And when we go with the Koreans sometimes into town, it'd be nothing. The guy riding shotgun, you come upon a boy on a bicycle, you knew that rifle, that butt was coming out and was going to hit him upside the head, and he'd go tumbling down the road, And we decided we don't, along with that was what trouble we got in town, we decided we don't want part of it. But, it rained a lot. I can remember like going through town with a deuce and a half and the mud puddles and splattering people and splattering over the houses and stuff, Monsoon was a lot of rain. Same time every day. You could count on it. Here it come. Here it rained in the afternoon about the same time. It even got cold there one time. Cold enough that you had to bundle up a little bit. I was surprised. Most time it was hot. You have the heat and humidity, and you adjust. But I'm sure you did too. You adjust pretty much to the temperature.
Now, who ran the motor pool for your unit?
We did. We had our own motor pool.
What vehicle did you have? Did you have a vehicle?
Well, not when we was out in the valley. We just had that deuce and a half.
Okay.
Actually, one time there was two of them out there because they brought them out with the radio equipment shacks on them, and they loaded them but left them there. But when I went back to help with the warehouse, they gave us. I had a 3/4 ton, and then I had a deuce and a half. I have a story about the deuce and a half too. I got to meet the CIA guy with it over the deuce and a half. We were pouring sidewalk and concrete around in the company, built the warehouse, and then they had us build an extension onto the NCO club, a concrete slab, so they could build onto it. And I was in charge of that, and I'd have to go out in I might have pictures over here. Go out in the valley and load up sand and bring back in that 3/4 ton. And finally, the guy in the motor pool said, "Why don't we give you a deuce and a half?" So they did, and we was out. I can't see it, find it right now, but anyway, this lieutenant that was in charge, first lieutenant, he come to me one time and says, "Do you need some cement?" And I said, "Oh yeah, we can." Because there you had to bag stuff. Like we used a concrete mixer to do that slab for the warehouse. We bought it from the engineers. And then we took it back. They told us we tore it all up. And I said, "No, it's in that shape when we got it." But that's how it goes. When you borrow something. But he says, "Can you use some cement?" Sure. And he said, "Well, can we use a construction engineer or some kind of engineer company, they need a deuce and a half to haul some cement, and they'll leave part of it on the truck. They do it at night." I thought, there's something strange going on here. So one morning, they borrowed it, and I went down. They'd done, I think, maybe about 3 times, and sure enough, they'd leave cement on it. It was a good deal. And in fact, we even kind of sometimes would have to scrimp on our concrete mix in order to make the cement go far enough, So we thought, well, we hope we're just here for a temporary while, not very long. And went down the motor pool, and my deuce and a half wasn't there. And so the guy, it was from El Dorado, Kansas, was in charge, and we were friends. And he said, "Well, I'll take that one over there." So I went out, and we was always paving the main street. We was putting like a chip and seal, but we was doing a sand and seal, I guess you call it. We was using sand instead of gravel. And we were doing that, and come back with a load of sand, and went through the back gate, and the guard says, "There's some guys from CIA up in the mess hall want to talk to you." I said, "Oh no." So I went up and didn't think anything about the deuce and a half, but he says, he says, we need to come downtown here where our headquarters is, and we need to talk to you. And I said, okay. We went down, and they had the dates that I had loaned that dew snap out. They had them recorded, and I found out they were black marking cements what they were doing. And they were using my dew snap, or a signal cord dew snap. You know, when you think back about that, you knew there was something not right on the up and up on that deal. But they ever sit out there. I had a couple flat tires on it for some reason, but it sat in their yard, and we never did see that dew snap again. They kept it, but it had a whole load of concrete on it, and they told me the dates that it had been used to transport concrete, and I convinced them that I really I don't think I had to do too much convincing, but they realized I didn't have anything to do with it other than I told them exactly what happened. I said, this lieutenant come to me, and he said, here, you can have some cement, and we needed cement, and it was working out for us, And last I heard, that lieutenant, that first lieutenant, and the lieutenant from the engineering company were both up in Leavenworth, is what I heard. So. But I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
I know he was no longer around. That lieutenant was gone after that incident. So
Do you have one guy in your unit that was a scrounger?
that's probably me.
Yeah.
As you can look at my place here.
So you scrounged items.
Yeah, I had a supply clerk guy that was in Company B when I was out in the Valley. Told me, he says, get you a clipboard and walk fast. I even used this when I worked, and walk fast and go into. There's a depot out there. There was an ammo depot and there was a supply depot, and he says if you have the right paperwork, you can get about anything you want out of that depot. And so I scrounged things. I never put them not for black market use, just for our use, stuff like that. The strangest story about that was one time I was in there getting something, and I seen these boxes that had cottage cheese wrote on them. I didn't think anything about the fact that it would have to be dehydrated cottage cheese, so I requisitioned some cottage cheese. I was disappointed. However, before I left, they put in the Army had put in a dairy. I don't know whether they hired some local farmers but they had a dairy, so we had fresh milk part of the time. So that was a good thing. You look at the Army, and I'm sure you probably noticed this too, was that as big as it is and as complex as it is, it's, a lot of people complain about the hurry up and wait and all this, but to me it was amazing that everything ran as smooth as it did.
Yes.
I mean, we never was without anything, and the supply and the logistics that's involved with that, it takes a lot of work, a lot of know-how, a lot of organization to get that done.
Yes. Where were you when TET broke out?
Pardon?
Where were you when TET broke out?
I was out in Valley A when TET broke out.
What did you do during TET?
We went in. We had to go into town of Quignon, and it was like a ghost town. There was nobody on the streets. They had taken the radio station, and they took there was a dignitary type hotel, main hotel, and the harbor. There was a big harbor there, which a lot of stuff went in and out through. And they had taken those, and we went to the radio station and set up on the parade field, or polo field, I'm sorry, right across from the radio station. And it was artillery, it was artillery on and stuff. I thought it was amusing because the radio tower, transmitting tower, because the North Vietnamese had taken over the radio station, was transmitting propaganda. But the tower was sitting right beside there. All they had to do is go over and remove the cable, and they would put them off the air. But I guess it's more fun to shell the building. And I wish I noticed those pictures are gone out of here. I had pictures of that radio station when they were done.
Yeah.
And when we went back in 2010, that polio field is now a big stadium with a seated stadium and a fancy radio station still in the same spot. Right across the street is a fancy radio station, or a fancy building for a radio station. One thing I also thought of when I went back was most of the landmarks, some of the landmarks, it's hard to, I wish I took some pictures with me that I had, because when you go back, it's hard to find things. The only thing that remained the same is the churches. The churches look about the same in the same spot. So, if you could find it, when we went back to Quignon, when we find a church, then we could figure, well, oh, this was the Catholic church or whatever, and then we could, oh, this was the church where we used to take the bodies in and they'd bury them. Then you could figure out from there where he was at.
You
But,
took the bodies in.
yeah, when they, enemy, would throw them in the back of a deuce and a half on a canvas, and they'd take them to this, not the Catholic church, it was by the refuge camp where we were stationed, but another Catholic church, and they would bury them,
Now, was this from,
mass grave.
was it from a firefight or something, or what?
Yeah.
What is a firefight? What happens?
Well, I never was involved in a firefight. I just was involved, like the Koreans would come in and help afterwards, clean up and stuff like that. So, and that might have been the first cab. I don't. Was the first cab stationed around Quinyon?
Well, we were on K just up the way.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it might have been from that. I don't know. Did you remember anything like that about?
Well, I didn't get there till August '67.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, during Tet, we were already moved north. We were at Da Nang with Tetbrook.
Okay.
Yeah, we were already up north.
When we flew into Quinyon, we flew into, not at the airport at Quinyon, we flew into Ankei, and that's the city.
Okay.
That's what they use for their municipal airport,
Yep.
is the air base at Quinyon, at Ankei.
That's we call it the golf course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's I wondered about. I remember we used to use the Quinyon air, mostly helicopter stuff. I don't remember. Well, no, we had the small two-person planes. I don't know what they were now, but they use them for reconnaissance, I think,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I remember when I flew down to Tuiwell, that's how I went down. I went
Okay.
either down or back on one of those type planes, and we landed at Quinyon. But I don't think the runway is very long at Quinyon. I don't recall ever seeing a C-123 or C-130 at Quinyon.
Yeah. Now, when you went out on patrol, were you ever taken out by helicopter to go out?
No, always by truck or walk.
Okay.
Because we were stationed right out in Valley A. So yeah,
Now, where was the warehouse that you helped build?
it was in Quinyon. It was
Quinyon.
at our company headquarters, at Company B headquarters.
They found out that you did concrete work, and so who was the warehouse was for? What unit? Was it for your
You
unit?
got it's for electronic supplies. Yeah.
Okay.
There was lots of little, I don't know, satellites or what you want to call them, shops around out in the area, and did repair too. And this was a location where they would come. In fact, these right here, those doors right there, that's they would put the parts for a certain company, for a certain shop out in the surrounding area. They would put each one had a designated door.
Okay.
And they'd put their parts in there so they could come anytime at all to unlock that and get the parts that was going to their
Who built
location.
these buildings?
Pardon?
Who built these buildings?
I built that building.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, this is the warehouse we built.
Well, that's a warehouse you
Yeah,
built. Okay.
there's my name in the concrete, and
Yeah.
when I went back, I tried to find that, but I couldn't find it, and I imagine it probably was tore down because this was all a refugee area where we was at, and now it's all nice modern hotels. In fact, the hotel we stayed at in Quinyon, nice hotel, and went down on the beach and realized it was the same beach that was allocated for us to use when we were there. It had the same seawall and had a little building, a little squat building. I don't know what it was for, but when they built the hotel, they incorporated that all in the area. So the beach we was on was the same beach that I'd swimmed on when I was there. Now there was concertina wire on each side of it, and on when you cross over the concertina wire, that was off limits. You could only stay in between on the beach. That was beautiful beaches. In fact, Quinyon is supposed to be our understanding was that Quinyon is supposed to be like the paradise of the Orient. It's where a lot of Orientals will come to vacation, and most of them will be. So they really have built up Quinyon, that area, and a couple other places that have really built up nice. Now, when we was in Hanoi, it probably is pretty much like it was when it was back in the day. It probably hadn't changed much. Saigon, I wasn't in Saigon, so I can't say during the war. But when we were stationed, stayed in Saigon, a very nice hotel. It looked like a very modern city. Of course, they call it Ho Chi Minh City.
Yeah, Ho Chi Minh City.
When we was in Hanoi, I was talking about the guy with us says Hanoi Hilton. would you like to go there? And I didn't know, but I finally relented and went to Hanoi Hilton. And John Glenn, or not John, McKay,
John McCain.
McCain, there we go. The only thing that they had that in a glass thing inside that prison. They had his flight suit.
Yeah.
And then they had these figurines that were Vietnamese figurines that was in torture. And it's my understanding from what that was that before that was used by the North Vietnamese to house the captured Americans, that the French had used that to house Vietnamese prisoners in. And of course it showed them in shackles and all things, and that of course they didn't mention anything about how they treated the Americans that was in there, but you can imagine.
Did you work with the Mountain Yards?
Pardon?
Did you
I
work
heard of
with
the Mountain Yards, and I seen Mountain Yards, but I never was around Mountain Yards. I mean, I never had much contact with Mountain Yards.
Yeah.
They were very tall people, you know, or statues seemed like they were a taller person than that. So.
How long were you in Vietnam?
Went over in '66 and came back in '69.
So how many months were you there?
36. Yeah,
Well,
I was there 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, you spent 3 years in
Yeah.
Vietnam?
Yeah.
Okay. Why'd you extend?
Because I thought it was my duty.
Mhm.
I thought this was a place for me. Was to be here, serve my country. I still believe that. That was, also because I knew that I've been told that if you come back with less than 5 months, you can get out early, which I did. I come back in May and got out early. That was another reason. Another reason was that I figured I didn't know how I would handle stateside. I could handle that. That maybe seems strange that I felt like I could handle Vietnam, but I could. I adjusted to it and fit in well. It was my home for that period of time. I served my country, and I just figured this is where I should be. So
Now, you were at the 41st Signal the whole time you were in
yeah, I was there
Vietnam?
at the 41st Company B the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't always in Queen Yan, but I was
Did
stationed
you
there.
do anything besides radio repair or radio operator?
Other than construction, that was it. And going on patrol with the Koreans.
Okay.
That was it. That was my
What's
duty.
your most vivid memory of Vietnam?
Probably building the warehouse. My most rewarding accomplishment was doing that. Probably my most vivid is the kids. And I used to satisfy myself with the fact, well, they don't know any better conditions than these. They're under wartime conditions. They're under poverty. They don't know anything better. But it did still break your heart. Another thing that discouraged me was Agent Orange, how it was used. It was irregardless of the farmers and their crops. If they had foliage, it was going to be sprayed. And I wonder how much that cost a lot of families, and that they didn't get their crops because we put Agent Orange on it.
What's your best memory of Vietnam?
Best memory of Vietnam, the camaraderie with the guys. A bunch of good guys. I never met a guy that I didn't like in Vietnam. We was always buddies, always friends. We never had any conflict. There was a guy, it's an AIT. He was a troublemaker in AIT. And I saw him in Vietnam years later. It was back when I went, it must have been the fall of '68. When it was back before we started the warehouse, back when I was working in the shop. He come in with a radio to be repaired. I don't know, I had an uneasy feeling about it because he had on lieutenant bar. And he was just I don't know if he went to officers school, and his name tag didn't match up with what I remembered. So I don't know what was going on there. And I would mention that, say that was probably my only time that I felt uneasy about someone. It was, what is this guy up to, and that. But
What's your worst memory of Vietnam?
Ted,
Dick.
yeah. Going in that morning, South Korean intelligence said that NVA had gotten South Vietnamese uniforms, so it'd be nothing to pull up, and there'd be a guy laying on the road bleeding to death. The South Vietnamese, in the South Vietnamese uniforms. And he had no way.
Did you take the radio station? Did you help take
Yeah,
the radio
yeah,
station?
we went to the radio station, helped take it back,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. How'd you take it back?
With the artillery.
Artillery? Okay.
Like I say though, there was the antenna was right there. Our company, B company, then brought in a transmitter and set up next to the tower in a small building. And then there was some concern about that being vulnerable. So they took it back to our company and in one of the upstairs in one of the barracks, they set it up there, and I remember the guys telling me that these Vietnam personality of Vietnam citizens that were on evidently worked with the radio station, some girls, some guys, would come in through the back gate and go up to that second store and do their transmitting or do their radio shows, whatever it was, using our transmitter.
Any USO shows come through?
Oh yeah, I've got pictures of USO shows. I appreciate the guys that came that supported the USO
Yeah.
shows. Most of them there were some Filipinos, there was some others, but it was always an attraction to draw, and even when we were out they'd let us know, and we'd come in for the show, and that. So Nancy Sinatra was there somewhere one time, but I didn't make it to her. So
I got to see Bob Hope.
did you get to see Bob Hope? I would have liked to see Bob
Yeah.
Hope. That would have been great. Ours was all just at the local. All the ones I got the privilege of going to was the ones at the local NCO club.
Yeah, we had some Filipinos come through.
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah.
And since I extended, they let me sit me down to Long Bend to see Bob Hope.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, and I
Good deal.
Margaret with
Yeah,
him. And
yeah,
I enjoyed that.
yeah.
Tell me about coming home.
Can I interrupt a minute?
Sure.
Pardon?
Are you gonna tell him about how you won the Bronze Star?
Yeah, I was awarded for Ted. I was awarded Bronze
Yeah.
Star. Okay.
What'd you do?
Just being there, just being part of the Korean.
He disobeyed rules is what he did.
Pardon?
You disobeyed rules.
Well, yeah, we did that too.
What'd you do?
Same first lieutenant that got in trouble. I was under him, and got in trouble with CIA, the lieutenant. I was under him, and we were at the radio. We were just, the Koreans was taking care of the radio station. We were just sitting there. It was the afternoon. After the morning, we come in, and we flipped over to the MP station and or frequency, and they were down at the hotel, and they needed help. So we went, and we got credit for helping rescue them. In fact, however, we got there, it wasn't just a matter of minutes before the MPs arrived to help anyway. But they appreciated what we did. But my lieutenant got upset with me because we left where we were at, and we shouldn't have done that, and he was going to court-martial us and all that. But this MP captain, I believe it was a captain, made sure I got the Bronze Star.
Good.
So I got that way.
So you left. What was your reaction when you were getting on the airplane coming home? What were you thinking?
The rest of my life. I got the rest of my life here. I guess the biggest, at the time, I didn't think it wasn't disappointed in my coming home. I did have my uniform on. I was proud. They can give us a new uniform. We got to throw everything away in Cameron Bay. We got to throw everything away. They gave us new stuff when we got to Tacoma. There we go, in Seattle. And come through Chicago, out of the list of that, there was some, I don't know what kind of children they were or what kind of people they was, but they weren't appreciative of me being in uniform, but that's, I think that happened. Got to Wichita and took a bus up to Salina, and my sister come and picked me up, and didn't think much about it. I realized it wasn't the homecoming that I had seen from World War II, but then I thought, but we go over for tours of duty, and when we come back, we're coming back one or two at a time. We're not coming back as a whole unit. We're not coming back to victorious and all that. So didn't think anything about the fact that, and didn't realize how unpopular the war was until I've been back. I maybe should have realize it but I didn't realize it until I was back home for a while before I realized how an unpopular war it was, and that. But to me, that doesn't change a thing of how it would even if I know it was an unpopular war with the people here in the States, I still would have extended and stayed and did what I did because I thought it was my duty.
When were you discharged?
I come back in May of '69.
May of '69. Okay.
Yeah, and then I had to report to a National Guard unit, but never had to show up. You know how that was. And, yeah,
What did you do after you got your discharge?
Pardon?
What did you do after you got your discharge?
Farmed for a little bit, and then went back to school. Met my wife. I went to was working as a welder in the wintertime, and guy I was welding with wanted to go out with my sister. I had just broken up with a girl in Wichita that I had met through the guy in El Dorado that I was stationed with over there, and I said, "Will you get me a date? And I'll get you a date with my sister if you get me a date." So that's how we got together on a blind date. Huh?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that was in Wichita?
That was in Wichita, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was the gal I broke up with in Hayesville, but Judy had moved to Salina to teach school there. She graduated from Florida State, and she was teaching in Salina, and lived next door to this guy that I worked with, and so.
When did you get married?
About a year later. We didn't mess around, did we? Not even a year later, probably about 9 months later. So yeah, this was Halloween.
Yeah.
Around Halloween. Actually, we were supposed to have a date to Halloween, but I think something happened and we didn't have it till the week after. Went to a drive-in movie, and my sister and my friend was in the back and we were in front. And then we got engaged in February or so and got married in August of that same year. So.
Now, when did you come down here to Oklahoma?
74. Went back to school. I was working as a welder. Flipped my helmet up one day, my welding helmet up, and looked around and I thought, man, they're working with a bunch of old guys. And I realized, no, they're not old guys. They just live a hard life. And I decided I didn't want to do this the rest of my life.
Where were you working as a welder?
Yeah, Rickle Manufacturing. They made fertilizer applicators, big A's they called them. They're the ones with the big tires on.
In Wichita?
No, in Salina.
Salina. Okay.
Salina, out the old Schilling Air Base.
Okay.
They closed it down, and they had Rickles rented a building from them that was ideal for their manufacturing of these fertilizer applicators. So I worked out there.
When did you go to school?
Went to Kansas Technical Institute right there in Salina. We'd gotten married. She was teaching. I had the GI Bill. Realized I didn't want to be a welder, so I went back. Used my electronic experience and went into electronic, and then came down here to work for Plot Automation here in Northern. And I was there 30 plus years, and then I retired about 11 years ago.
Okay. Would you join the Army again?
Sure, if I was younger. Not now. I couldn't take it right now, but yeah, oh yeah. I recommend the Army. But then that's the only exposure I had.
Yeah.
I didn't have any. And most of my friends I went to high school with, they was all in the Army. It was either MP or engineering. And my relatives, I think we were all mostly Army. I don't think. Now, since we've been here, we've had some friends. Their boys that went to Marines, but yeah, that's the only exposure I really had was Army. So I guess I'd recommend Army. I think Army matured me. I know it did. I mean, being in service, that's what the Army. It matured me, made me ready for the world, and I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful now for the VA that takes care of my medical stuff.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
I like the word association. I'll give you some words and you give me your reaction.
Okay.
The first one is basic training.
Well, Fort Lawson would, I guess. The basic training was easy. I enjoyed basic. I enjoyed basic training to a point. That it was easy. Wasn't that bad. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. In fact, it helped build me up, and buff me up a little more, and so I enjoyed that.
Fort Gordon.
Fort Gordon, cold. Now we had to steal coal. We didn't have no coal. We had to go to other barracks and steal their coal, and they'd have to come to ours and steal our coal. Fort Gordon, I learned how to be around other people. growing up on a farm, and just most of the people you know are your relatives, or you grew up with all your life, so you had to learn how to interface with people from other parts of the country. And so probably how to interface with other people is what I remember about Fort Gordon.
Cameron Bay.
Cameron Bay, a very busy place. I may have got hepatitis in Cameron Bay coming home, because after I got home for a couple of weeks, I feeling bad, went to the doctor, and I had hepatitis. VA took care of it for me. So I guess maybe hepatitis, I don't know.
Yeah. Quinyon.
Quinyon is, since I've been there now, is a beautiful
One
town.
word.
What? Oh, one word.
Oh, it had to be one word.
Oh.
Yeah.
Quinyon during the war was a very run-down place, but now it's a very beautiful place. There's been a lot of money spent in Quinyon to build it up.
I was in the hospital in Quinyon.
What?
I was in the hospital.
Okay, all right. You was right next to our B company's right next to you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, when you come down, there's a road that come off of a road that went around the airport, and the road that went down. We were.
Remember, there's some mountains there off.
Yeah, Bung Chau Mountain. Those were Bung Chau Mountains back behind it.
Okay.
That was Bung Chau Mountain that we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
South Koreans.
Mean. very dedicated. Very dedicated, but also very. I don't know if mean's the right word, but because they were so dedicated that they were, and they worked on their hand-to-hand stuff a lot. You'd be out there, and therefore they were feared by the Viet Cong. I think I heard the Viet Cong would go out of their way to avoid them. They had been exposed in their own country to this type of stuff, I'm sure, with North Korea and the North Korean War, and also learned that Uncle Sam was paying them combat pay to be there, and also they often remarked that they had brothers, cousins at home that was willing to come take their place, and so they were willing to come. One thing I didn't talk about when I was in the North Vietnamese visit with that, I learned that was an unpopular war with North Vietnamese. The citizens of North Vietnam, that was not a popular war thing. Now, of course, I was visiting with a gentleman who had been disabled in the war, and I never knew what his disability was. I knew he was at the DMZ, and he had not been in the service very long he'd not been at the DMZ very long to where he was sent back because he was disabled. I don't know if he was wounded or what, but I got the impression through his son that everybody had to serve. I think it may have been an 18-month service, not a year, but even down as even pretty young kids had to 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds had to serve mandatory, and that because of that and because they did not understand why the North Vietnamese needed the South Vietnamese. We often was told it's because of the agricultural stuff, but when I was in the North, there's lots of agriculture in the North. So I think it was some powers to be, maybe Ho Chi Minh thought he needed the South Vietnamese land and not necessarily the people of North Vietnamese didn't think they needed. That's the impression I got. Patrol, I think it was necessary to go out and to be. I don't say I enjoyed patrol because it was unexpected what might happen. Although most time it was walking a park. You just go out, and he was usually, and they was, further back, and they would, but I don't know. Patrol was, yeah. Vietnam, I think it served my country. Vietnam was where I was destined to serve my country.
Why were we in Vietnam?
Well, we were told, it was because of to prevent the spread of communism. The communist China and communist North Vietnamese wanted to take over South Vietnamese. South Vietnamese wanted a democracy government and that. And so that's why we were told, And like I mentioned earlier, then we were told also that the North wanted the South because of all the agricultural stuff. And because the North was supposed to be very industrial and the South was supposed to be very agricultural.
Ho Chi Minh.
I think he was a dictator, I think he was a lot like a lot of people. I think he was a smart man. When you were there during Tet, Did you think we missed an opportunity in Tet to end that war?
Yes.
I think we did too. I think the North thought that this was going to be the turning point of the war for them. I think we actually defeated them, and I think we should have come in and finished the job. I really do.
I'll tell you about that when
Okay.
this is. LBJ, Lyndon Johnson.
I like Lyndon Johnson, just like I like Ike. Yeah, and I think probably given the information he had, or what I thought the information he had at the time, that he was justified in us being in Vietnam. I have learned since then that there was, some documentaries been done that maybe everything wasn't on the up and up, and there were some things that weren't told accurately,
Yep.
and people were misled and stuff on it. But
Richard Nixon.
pardon?
Richard Nixon.
I don't know. I regretted that he got forced out of office. I thought he was going to be a good president. Probably was a good president, but
How do you want to be remembered?
that I made a difference in this world. I have two kids that are making it. They're both in service related and a nonprofit charitable Christian organizations where they're out. My daughter, I haven't get a chance to brag about my daughter. She works for Convoy Hope, which does disaster work. In fact, she's been
She
to
works for who?
Convoy Hope out of Springfield, Missouri.
Convoy Hope.
Convoy Hope.
Convoy of Hope.
She was with Red Cross in Oklahoma City. Started out there working with the bombing victims. Of course, she was still in college when the bombing happened, but after she got out of college, she worked at a homeless shelter, and then she went over to Red Cross and worked with the bombing victims. And then she went to DHS for a while, but then she went to Catholic Charities, and she was in charge of the multi-agency that was over the Moore tornadoes of 2013. There were several Baptist, Red Cross, Catholic Charities, Convoy Hope, some other people that worked, banded together. They formed a group, and she was in charge of helping with the disaster relief of rebuilding homes and so forth, houses and that, for that. And she did that for, she's also done wildfires. She was in wildfires, like the ones out in Panhandle, but other wildfires around, other tornadoes, she worked them. So Convoy Hope came and got her, and the reason I'm happy about her is because she's just not out there. She's in a nonprofit. She don't make big money, but she's out there trying to make a difference. And she's been to North Carolina 3 times. She's been down to Florida 3 times. They call it deploy. We call it tour of duty. Now everybody calls it deploy. Even in here, she said she was deployed to help with the hurricanes that happened recently. My son works for, like our mentioned, for a non-charitable or non-profit charitable organization that builds children's hospitals. I forgot to mention, in Vietnam, they didn't build a hospital, but they have 4 clinics there. And clinics are set up with existing hospitals. So they went in and partnered with existing hospitals. Because if they set up their own hospital, since it's Christian-based, they also use it to spread the word of God, the hospitals. I mean, they like to, have a Christian atmosphere in their hospital and with the patients that's there, and the mothers or the caregivers that's there. But anyway, he works for a company that builds these hospitals. Like I said, in Bali, Uganda, there was hydrocephalus. They also do clubfoot, cleft palate, other brain tumors, other things. They have hospitals that do that. They have, I think there's 11 hospitals now. They had 13, but they've they turned the one in Dominican Republic back to some, because the economy changed, the people are more profitable, so it's now worked by it's not a non-profit hospital more.
Do you have any questions? Anything?
Oh,
I was going to say, my son now, I think he told me the other day they have 450 clinics around the world. Like I said, 4 of them in Vietnam. But they're making a difference. And that's what I thought I was doing. I'm trying to make a difference, just not out there making a paycheck and living. I did that later in my, but I raised 2 good kids that are out there trying to make a difference. And that's one of my biggest accomplishments, my kids.
Well, sir, this is an excellent interview.
Well, thank you.
I want to thank you for your service and thank
Well,
you
thank
for the
you.
interview.
Thank you, sir. So,
And again, this is July 21st, 2019. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Tom Johnson in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.